Hey guys, Florida Stunners here. In my last video, I showed you guys how to wire the electret microphone to make a lavalier microphone. I showed you guys two methods. A simple wire connection from the electret microphone capsule to the connector and a simple circuit connection. Now in this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to wire these microphones. I'm gonna actually go ahead and make a functioning microphone for you guys, show you the steps and show you the components. The actual wiring that I'm going to do, the method I'm using is the first one which was just straight wire from the electric microphone capsule to the connector. In my next video, I'll show you guys the actual circuit with the external battery pack, and after that I'll probably put up a video on using a filter and include a video on how to make that microphone as well. Well, let's get started. We're going to be working on only one way of wiring these microphones on this video. Now, the last video I posted, I spoke of two different ways of wiring it. There was the straight connection and then the simple electric microphone circuit. Now we're going to be working on the first of those, the very straightforward, just wire to the electric microphone. So I want to go over a few things. I'm going to go over what I'm using, the tools I'm going to be using, and what you're going to need. So let's start off with the tools. Over here you're going to need a soldering iron, and you're going to need flux, some soldering flux, some solder. It helps to have with these little helping hands. You can get them at your local electronics store, even a Harbor Freight, and little places. At Home Depot probably has them as well. Scissors are helpful, small tweezers, needle nose pliers, wire cutters. Now that's about all the tools I'm going to be using. Some desoldering stuff could work, some desoldering wire. Now we might not need this, but it's good to have handy just in case. Now, the components you're going to need for this. Wire with whatever jack you're going to be using to connect to your camera. I'm going to be using this, I'm going to be reusing this wire. It's a TRRS wire for a microphone, and it already has the end on it. But if you just have some wire laying around, you could just use that, and that'll work well. You're just going to need the tip, whatever tip you're going to be connecting to, and you're going to have to wire that. Over here I got a little bit of foam that I'm going to be using to wrap around the bottom of the microphone when I place it inside the casing. Now for the casing, for the microphone, what I'm using is a 3.5 millimeter female jack for the casing. Now it works good with the 6 millimeter microphone. So if you purchase any of these little 6 millimeter electric microphones, they fit good inside of this. Now I'm going to show you how you get this to work. When you get one of these, when you pull it out, it's going to look like this. Now we don't want all of this. What I do is I grab a Dremel and I cut right above the threads and cut this excess stuff off. We're not going to need it. And that leaves me with this. Just this tip to screw on as a cover and the shell. Now this will house the microphone pretty well. You're just going to need some foam to hold it in place, some hot glue. It's optional to have a hot glue gun to hot glue it in place if you'd like to. I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to reuse this material. Here is the 6 millimeter electric microphone off of eBay. Now I provided a link to be able to purchase this on my last video, so if you're interested, check out that video. I got links to some of these parts on there. So we're going to get started now. Guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start getting this wire set up. I'm going to wrap this wire and we're going to strip it. We're going to strip a little piece for the microphone so that we can solder onto the microphone itself. Now, it doesn't have to be very big, just a small little piece will do. Now if you don't have wire strippers, you can use, on thin wires, you can use your fingernails or scissors. Just be very careful not to damage these little wires. So we got our two wires here. We're going to have our ground and our red lead. Now I'm only going to cut off a very small end piece, strip the end only on this red positive wire. Now this is where the helping hands come into play. We're going to solder this. Now I'm going to add some of this liquid flux on here to help take any corrosion off, clean up those wires, and it helps the solder stick to it really well. Turn on my soldering iron, let it heat up. Now I usually solder around 360 degrees Celsius. That seems to work for me. If you guys just have a regular soldering iron, that'll work too. If you don't have a temperature controlled soldering iron. Let's wait for this to heat up. Now let's get this tip ready. We're going to tin it up a little bit, clean it up. All right. So we're going to heat up the wire and then add some solder to it. Now we don't have to add a lot. We're just going to tin it up. So there goes the first one. Now let's do the red lead. There we go. That's all it takes. Now ensure that when you are done soldering, where you're not going to be soldering for a bit, coat that tip on your soldering iron and shut off your soldering iron. It helps save the life of your tip. Alright guys, now that we got the wire tinned up and ready to go, we're going to take it out of here and we're going to slide our sleeve, our casing, through this wire. So we're going to put this end through the bottom and put this in here. Now don't forget to do this, because if you solder your microphone on, you're going to be really upset when you got to take everything back apart to be able to put the casing on. So just slide it up in there, it does not matter. And we're going to put this back over here. Now we're going to get our microphone ready. Little electric microphone. Now some of these come with little leads on it, and I mean that's fine, but I like to cut these off a bit, just leave a little tiny edge on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors here and I'm just going to snip these off. Only leave a little tip. Let me see if I could get this focused in. If you can see, it's very small. So now that we got that ready, we're going to put this on our helping hands as well. And we're going to get ready to solder this. Now the electret microphone, there's two terminals, the positive and the negative. You can tell which one's which because the negative terminal will have little contacts connecting to the outside casing. The one that connects to the outside casing is your negative terminal. And that in the terminal is going to be connected to your ground wire. Positive terminal to the other one. Positive wire to the other terminal. Turn our soldering iron back on, let it heat up. Now I'm going to add a little bit of solder to the tip of these leads on the microphone. That way it makes it a little bit easier to solder. Clean that tip off and now prep it to be soldered. Now be very careful when you solder these. You do not want to pull on these too hard because sometimes it does rip the contact off. Now if you rip the contact off the electret microphone, that microphone is not going to be useful anymore. You're going to have to just throw that microphone away. So you want to be very careful when you solder this. Alright, now that we're done soldering, we're going to recoat our tip, tin it back up, and store it. Shut it off. And now our microphone is connected. Now, there's two ways you could do this. If you are not planning on reusing this and you want it to be very stable and don't want it to move too much, I would suggest adding a little bit of hot glue to hold together these wires to the electret microphone. That way, in case you pull on it, it won't rip off. It won't rip off any of the leads. It just makes it that much stronger. electrical tape works just as good. You can put some electrical tape around it, it'll work well. Now let's see if I can zoom in on this. That way you guys can see this. So there we go. We got our two leads connected to our electric microphone, and like I said, you could add a little bit of hot glue to hold that together, or use electrical tape to put between and then wrap around and protect it. Alright guys, now just to protect this microphone and I could show you and test it out, I am going to add a little bit of electrical tape and just to protect it slightly. So I'm going to put a little piece through that hole just to separate the contacts, and then I'm going to wrap this around. Alright, now that's ready. Now we're going to move on to sleeving it up and finishing this up. Alright guys, now that we're on to our last step. So now it's all about putting this little shell on the casing. Now we got this foam, and what this foam is going to do, it's going to sit right around this cable and help protect it and keep it in place when I put this on. So this foam I picked up from Home Depot. It's just, you just go around and find any foam piece you need. This is just a sealing foam, and anything will work. Anything you guys got. If you guys got a piece of rubber, foam, this is just what I happen to have laying around and use. Now I cut this in half. Just get a small piece that I could wrap around this and cut a little notch in the inside so I could wrap the wire around. Now let's see, we're gonna have to test fit this, see how it works, see if it fits okay. So I wrap this around and let it go to the bottom of the microphone, and then I slip this in. Now another option you guys could have is to put some hot glue in place to hold this all together if you want it permanently held together. Now be very careful pushing this in. You do not want to rip on this wire and pull off all these contacts. If it doesn't fit in, you're having a little bit of trouble, just cut off a little more of this material. Let's test fit this. Alright, that looks like it's going to work. Now we're going to push our microphone in and slightly, just very slightly pull it in. You're going to see it's going to fall in place down here. Now another thing I would suggest doing if you really want to keep this microphone for a long time and you want to add a little bit of extra, not really protection, but a little bit of wind protection. If you have old headphones, earphones laying around, you can sometimes get a little bit of the foam from the earphone and use that. Now earphones have these little pieces of foam. You could add that in here, cut a little piece off. You know, I'll add it just for these purposes. Just cut a small piece off. It doesn't have to be perfect, and put it up in here to help with protect from with the wind. Now you're going to grab your tip, screw it on, and you have yourself a lavalier microphone, a cheap do-it-yourself lavalier microphone. Now I will show you guys a sample of how this microphone sounds. Remember, this is not using any kind of filtering that has no external power. This is just a straight microphone connecting to a phone. Alright guys, so now the microphone is made, it's time to test it out. So in order to test it out, I'm going to be reading off these lines. Now there's 10 lines here that I'm going to read, and you guys could use these lines to test out the microphones, and you can find it on ethos3.com. You can also Google search phrases to test microphones. What it does is it arranges everything phonetically so that every single sound that you could possibly make will be made by reading these sentences, and you could test your mic out that way. So let's start this off. The small pup gnawed a hole in a sock. The fish twisted and turned on the bent hook. Pressed the pants and sew a button on the vest. The swan dive was far short of perfect. The beauty of the view stunned the young boy. 2 blue fish swam in a tank. Her purse was full of useless trash. The colt reared and threw the tall rider. It snowed, rained, and hailed the same morning. Read verse out loud for pleasure. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, comment. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you for watching. Bye.